Oh, never mind. Just kidding. Good morning. Good morning. There we go. That's perfect. On behalf of the United Arab Emirates, on behalf of Masdar City, and on behalf of the Global Parliament of Mayors, I am honored and delighted to be able to talk today with three distinguished mayors. We're going to talk about the role that cities have to play in sustainability, some of the challenges that they go through, and some of the accomplishments that they've had in their cities. We're also fortunate enough to be honored by having mayors from around the world, which will test my pronunciation of all of their names and cities. And then at the end, we have a few other distinguished guests who will say a few words. I am the moderator. I'm Steve Severns. I've been working for Masdar City for the past 13 years and have seen what we've been able to do in terms of developing a greenfield sustainable city in a very difficult climate. And that's one of the reasons why we're here today, is to talk about the challenges of both greenfield and brownfield development. So I'm delighted to have that. I'm also in charge of keeping us on schedule. And I know how difficult that is for the mayors, but I will have to keep time on this. We're going to give each mayor a chance to say a few words, and then we'll have a short panel discussion, and then we've got a couple of audience members who are also distinguished guests who will say a couple of words at the end. So I'd like to welcome our guests. First is Mayor Dijksma from Utrecht in the Netherlands. We have Mayor Low from Banjul in the Gambia, and we have Mayor Arahu from Quelimane in Mozambique. And I think I got all those. And I'd like to ask Mayor Low to say a few words on her behalf as the Vice Chairman of the Global Parliament of Mayors, who we're doing this panel together with.
Good morning to all of you. I am Mayor Low, the Mayor of Banjul, the Gambia, and indeed the Vice Chair of the Global Parliament of Mayors and the President of Rafela. Rafela is the network of the locally elected women. I want to welcome everybody, and first and foremost, on behalf of my chair, Mayor Kotz of Mannheim, I sincerely want to thank the United Arab Emirates for this platform. Steph?
Thank you, and we appreciate that. Now I'd like to give the floor to Mayor Dijksma, who not only is the mayor of Utrecht, but was previously the environmental minister for the Netherlands and was very active in negotiating the COP agreement in Paris. So I think she's going to talk a little bit about the cooperation between the national governments and the cities and what we need to do to move to get to that carbon neutrality by 2050, which is a goal we've all coalesced around, and I think all the countries on the panel here have signed up for.
Yes, good morning to all of you. I'm not only the mayor of Utrecht, but at this moment also the special envoy on behalf of ICLE and LGMA towards this COP, and it's all about multi-level cooperation. So they have been asking me to do this in order to get the position of cities much more at the podium where it should be, actually. And this is because we see, not only in my own country, in the Netherlands, but also worldwide, that if you really want to commit to mitigation, for instance, and also adaptation, you need the cities. You cannot do it without them. Because a lot of things that have to be done, whether it's about sustainable mobility or the energy transition, has to take place in the cities. At this moment, almost 70% of all pollution also takes place in cities. So if you want to have a game changer, so to say, and I think that we desperately need that, then you need to cooperate between both national governments and also cities, and I would say private sector and academics also. So this is what we do in the Netherlands. In the previous governmental period, the Dutch government made an initiative in organizing a kind of climate pact, actually with all stakeholders, including the municipalities. But at that time, that was before Glasgow, before the previous COP, we still had a lack of funding from the national government to the cities in order to really do what has to be done. And that was a big gap. It was about 700 million euro. So we managed actually in the last year to close the gap. And I'm very happy with that. And now we cooperate. My minister is also here at COP, the Minister for Climate Policy, but a lot of other ministers from the Dutch government are here. So we closely cooperate in that way that they actually make the policy for the country, and we do the implementation, but we also intervene on how the implementation should take place. So this cooperation is really necessary, not only within my country, but I would say for all countries, and especially in the global south. What we do see is that a lot of cities need access to finance, need access to expertise. They are booming, so many people come to the cities, and we still have the opportunity to do the right thing. But at this moment, and then I close my first statement, we do not have a formal position within the UNCCC framework to really discuss with national governments, with the international family, on how we should proceed with the implementation. And tomorrow there will be a ministerial between ministers and mayors, a high-level meeting, and we try to get this on the agenda and also in the formal conclusions of this COP.
Thank you so much. I mean, I think what you laid out for us is that while the national governments can set the agenda and sign up for the targets, it's the cities that have to deal with the impact. And yesterday, we passed 8 billion people. I didn't notice the difference, but we passed 8 billion people.
It is true.
And a lot of those people are in the global south, as you talked about. And the mayors of those cities are going to have to deal with the influx of people as well as mitigating climate change. And that's why I'd like to turn next to Mayor Araujo and talk. He's going to talk about two specific things that he's doing in his city around food security, but also around bicycle infrastructure.
Thank you very much. It's indeed a great honor and a privilege for me not only to be at this distinguished panel, but also to be among two very brilliant mayors, Mayor Sharon and my sister from Banjul, Mayor Lord. Quelimane is an intermediate city with about 400,000 inhabitants, and is the capital of one of the 10 Mozambican provinces with about 6 million people. And actually, its geographic location is quite challenging because we are at the end of a river on an estuary, and also in the banks of another river, which makes it very, very vulnerable. Actually, it's one of the most vulnerable cities, not only in Mozambique, according to the IPCC data, but also in Africa and in the world. So every year, we suffer more than between 2 to 3 extreme events, like cyclones, floods, and so on. So because of our geographical situation, it prompts us and it puts us challenges that we need to respond. And one of the challenges we had was flooding, because as I mentioned, due to our location, we are a coastal city, so we suffer the effects of flooding not only from the rain, but also from the sea rise. And sometimes these two phenomena happen at the same time, making it very, very challenging. So because of that, it creates several challenges to us, and one of them was to do with sanitation on one side, and the other one was with nutrition. Because like in my province, 55% of the children, unfortunately, they are malnourished. So we had this challenge, and I was thinking with my team, how are we going to tackle these problems? That's when we came up with a project whereby we used to transform waste, specifically food waste, into compost. So by transforming food waste into compost, we solved with one stone two problems. One, the sanitation problems, and the second, the nutrition problem. Because we didn't have, when we started processing the food waste into compost, we diminished the number or the quantity of waste that had to be thrown away, thus avoiding polluting the environment. And also by creating compost and giving it to farmers, we were able of influencing the way farmers were producing urban food to feed their own families, but also we acted in the whole value chain because we discovered that a lot of produce was being wasted. First of all, at the farmers level, when they produced, almost half of their production was going into waste. So we worked with them to improve the conservation. But also, in the process of transporting this food from the farms to the market, another 1/3 was lost. And during the process of selling it, therefore, at the market level, there was also waste. So we came up with a whole strategy to deal with food waste from the production side into the transportation side, but also into the market. So we worked with them. We taught the farmers new techniques, not only to improve their production techniques, but also to increase the productivity by using the compost there. Second, we worked at the end of the value chain, which was to train those vendors at the market on the best way to conserve their food. And lastly, we also worked with the buyers of the food on the best way to mix the food as a way to maximize the nutrition output. So by doing that, we acted on the whole value chain, including transport. And actually, 2 weeks ago, we won an award from the Milan Urban Police Pact at their annual meeting in Rio de Janeiro for this practice. What we are looking now is to scale up the experience we have, but also to share with other cities, not only in Mozambique, in Africa, and worldwide. Just to go to the mobility challenge.
And quickly, I've got to keep you in line.
Very quickly. When I contested elections for the first time in 2011, those cycling in my city were seen as third-class citizens, as the poor, those who could not buy cars. So there was a kind of a stigma toward them. So I decided to run on that platform. I decided not to use any carbonized mean of transport. So I was using bicycle as a mean of campaigning. And at the beginning, everybody laughed at me. They were like, I mean, how can you dream to win an election when you are biking? And I managed to do that. And from that side, it changed. We changed the perception about cycling. Today, I cycle from my office to home and from home to office. And those who are seen as third-class citizens, they are today called the sons of the mayor. It gave us status. And like the police, my city is the capital of biking in Mozambique. We have about 5,000 to 6,000 bicycles in my city. You can imagine, at that time, we had no one single traffic light in my city. So there were accidents every day, almost every hour. And the attitude of the police was that it's the cyclist's fault because in the first place, roads were built for cars, not for bicycles. And so we had to change. I had to work with the municipal police to change their perception. Because to me, if we want a democratic society, it has to do with numbers. And we did a study where most people in my city, they walk. The second means is bicycles, and cars are the minority. So if we wanted to distribute the division of roads according to the use, we should create infrastructure to be pedestrian, but also for those who are cycling. And we tried, and we are doing that. We inaugurated on the 21st of August this year the first cycle line, not only in my city, but in Mozambique. For the first time in Mozambique, we have got a cycle line. For most of you, you may laugh at it, but it took me a lot of effort because we had to win so many interest groups, like because those who drive cars, normally they are the most powerful, the more affluent, and with most power. So I had to confront them in the process of building cycle lines because they were saying, look, you are taking roads out of cars to give to the cyclists. Why are you doing that? And slowly we managed to do it, but it was really like a fight against
Mayor
those
Raho,
who have power and so on.
you know why I'm smiling? Because we're doing the same thing in Abu Dhabi.
Oh,
And if you think people walking and biking don't have power in Kolamane, they don't in Abu Dhabi even
Dhabi.
more. We are a car, but we all should aspire to be more like the Netherlands, more like the Dutch in this instance, where they really bike.
so we need to learn from the mayor then. How did
we
they
learn-
manage to win over?
And
Yeah,
so
but
I
it's
wanna-
great to hear.
I do want to give a few minutes to Mayor Lowe here, particularly to talk about some of the initiatives she's done around women in sustainability and her foundation with the Rowie Malik Lowe Women and Girls Empowerment Initiative and what she's doing there.
Thank you very much once again, Steph. And I want to urge everybody to join us at the Global Parliament of Mayors, where mayors network and learn a lot on how to mitigate problems on the local level. As I said, I came from a city with about 30,000. The population is about less than 30,000. But we have over 400,000 coming in and out of the city because the city is a port city that says a commercial city and also a tourist city. But I am here today to talk about the leadership of female mayors. As female mayors in Africa, let me take it in the context of Africa, it is really, really very difficult. Difficult in the sense that everybody will agree that mayors are on top of things. But how are the female mayors feeling in Africa? And a continent where women are so undervalued, where women are only meant to be in the kitchen, where women are not given the value that they deserved. It's definitely very, very difficult. As a mayor in Banjul, when I came into office, it was very, very tough in the sense that I am the first female mayor in the Gambia. So starting from the campaign, this is where the stereotyping and the bullying came. And the signal was, get out of the political arena, you belong to the house. But thank God, the female population in the Gambia believed in me and voted me in office. But in the office again, it comes. Because still, men don't want to accept that a female mayor can move things in the capital. So everything was really very difficult. However, my strategy was to try to empower more women so that we can cut these traditional and cultural norms. So I have an initiative called the Rohim Malik Law Initiative, which is doing extremely well. So what we are doing is empowering women economically and also taking them girls to school. So today I am proud to say that within a period of 5 years, we have empowered over 800 women and over 1,000 girls that we have put in schools. And some of them now are at least in the university, trying to graduate to be a lawyer or a doctor. This is not about giving us millions. Indeed, but what is more difficult and what is more painful is to have people or partners coming to our aid. Everybody, most of the partners want to deal with the national government because some of them, and this is the reality, all what they need is visibility. And they think they don't care about impact. So if you want to have an impact, you have to come to the local level because we are closer to the people. We understand the issues of people. And we as mayors can solve the issues of people. So those who want to have visibility and don't care about impacts, most of them run to the national level. No, we are not saying don't go to the national level. But if you want to have impact, then come down to the local governments. We have been doing a lot. And I want to take this opportunity also to thank the EU, who has given us about 3 million euro only to mitigate the coastal. Banjul is a coastal city. So obviously, we are in a risk of flooding. And this is exactly what happened in August. Banjul flooded, we have a flash flood, and over 1,000 women suffered from this. And they don't have nowhere to go other than knocking the door of the mayor. So this was really very, very difficult for me. But again, I have to thank the Global Parliament of Mayors, and also my sincere thanks go to Emilia Satz of the UCLG Wall, who came immediately to my aid. And if I said Emilia Satz, what does it mean? She is a woman. She understands the feeling of the woman in the Gambia. So she came to help us. So at this moment, we have many girls who are not going to school because they don't have nothing. We have women who are sleeping right now outside in the streets because they cannot go back to their houses. But who is there to help us? I want to take the opportunity here, the platform, to say we need you. Come to local government. We are really, really in need. And the national government, in many times, will see us as not a partner, because they are the one who is supposed to do the budgeting, for example. And most of the things that has to do with local government is most of the time taken out of the budget. And I am saying this in the context of Africa. Those living in Europe or Asia might not feel the same way, but in Africa it's really, really difficult for the simple reason that they don't value the leadership of a woman. But I thank God that today many things are changing, because if we have one woman, for example, in Banjul, who is trying to cut down, who is trying to break this barrier, and somebody else is doing it in Freetown, and somebody else is doing it in Dakar, before the next 10 years, we will see a lot of women in leadership in Africa. So I want to urge partners here to say, please come to our aid, not only in the Gambia. Mayors need you. We are closer to the people. We understand their issues, and we understand their problems. If you want to have impact, come to us. If you want to have visibility, come to us. So, Stefan?
Thank you, Mayor Lowe. That was very powerful about the impact that climate change is having on your city already, and will continue to have. And we've got an interesting panel here, and now I get the chance to talk for a couple of minutes about Masdar and the UAE and why we're here on this panel. And I want to go quickly on why, what, how, and the impact that Masdar's been able to have. And the first question people ask me is why? Why is the United Arab Emirates, a country with 8% of the world's known oil reserves, putting this much effort into mitigating climate change, into building renewable energy projects, in being active in 40 countries around the world, in wind, in solar, in waste to energy, in carbon capture and storage? Because while oil and gas, hydrocarbons, have enabled economic development and have enabled human growth and have enabled a great change in our society over the past 100 years, they are also, I think we all understand, killing the planet, and that we need to transition past those. And the UAE wants to maintain a leadership role in the next round of energy, which is renewable energy and sustainability. And to do that, you need to have the right human capital. You need to have the right financial capital. You need to have the ability to attract global talent, and you need to have the ability to create global partnerships. And that's what the Masdar Initiative is all about. So I think what most of you are familiar with is Masdar City, and it's where I've been working for the past 13 years. I've been able to see this grow from an idea to become the world's largest collection of LEED Platinum and Estidama 4 Pearl buildings, to see it become a living, working city where we have about 1,200 companies now that have become a part of us, and to see us lead the way in terms of net zero. So this is the way we work at Masdar City. We started 5 years ago with a 400 square meter net zero villa. Now that's a pretty good sized villa, and we will prove that we can do a net zero building in the climate conditions of Abu Dhabi. I'm not sure how many of you have visited Abu Dhabi in the summer. It's warm, it's very warm, temperatures over 40 degrees with humidity for months in a row. We've been able to do a net zero building. The next phase is what we're building right now, and if you have the chance to come over and look at the project, it's a 10,000 square meter net zero office building. And so we're able to take that from a pilot project to a commercial project. And it's one thing to do a net zero office building, it's another thing to do a net zero office building at a price point that people can come and afford to rent. Because while we're at an environmental conference, we have a long way to go, I think, globally, in terms of changing the culture around how people think about sustainability. Because I often ask a question, you know, how many of you live in a house or an apartment? And generally the answer is yes. How many of you, before you bought or rented that house, asked about the sustainability criteria of the apartment? Did you say, if I live in this apartment, do I have an efficient heating system, efficient air conditioning system? Will I have this? Now, if you're in the Netherlands, that might be a question you would ask. Because I appreciate what the Scandinavian countries, and I'll throw the Netherlands up there, but the Northern European countries have done in installing a culture of sustainability, a culture of bike riding, a culture of using less. So I think the rest of us, including both my home country, the United States, and the United Arab Emirates, have a long way to go in terms of that culture of sustainability. And so we need to be able to do this in a way that people can afford to rent, that it won't cost more money. So we need to be able to take the costs out of sustainability. How do we do a net zero building? How do we reduce that cost of sustainability? And we do it by creating a blank piece of paper and thinking with everything we do, how do we make a more sustainable environment? How do we use the architecture and the master planning to adapt to the environment that we're in, not just heating and air conditioning systems to overcome it? Because often you'll see the same buildings being built in Abu Dhabi, in New York City, in Italy, in Africa, and we'll just use varying levels of air conditioning. But we wanted to look at the master plan and say, if you were to do this city, how would you do it if you had no air conditioning? You'd have narrow streets, buildings that shade each other. You'd shift the entire master plan to catch the prevailing winds. So everything we've done at Masdar is about reducing consumption, creating a sustainable environment for people to live in without increasing their costs. And that's when, and what is the impact finally? I think if you look at where we are here with the UAE Pavilion, and we're very excited about COP28 coming to the UAE next year. I hope that all of you will be back to come and visit Masdar City. That's part of the impact. The other impact is what we're doing globally in terms of renewable energy. We have set world record pricing multiple times. I think one of the great accomplishments that we've had globally, and I think we can all say this is one thing we've solved, and there's probably only one thing we've solved in terms of our getting to net zero, and that's the cost of renewable energy. In the 13 years that I've been at Masdar, we've gone from renewable energy to being the most expensive energy on earth. And so when we put a 10 megawatt plant in the ground at Masdar City, that was very expensive. We used to talk about getting to grid parity, meaning we could produce renewable energy to about 20 to 25 US cents in Europe. We're now doing 2 gigawatts at 1.35 cents. Solar energy and wind energy have become the cheapest energy on earth, and Masdar has played a big role in that, both locally but also in the region. We have abundant sun, and we have a lot of land. And so solar is able to be done very cost effectively, but it's also a demonstration of what happens when you put a stake in the ground and you say, we're going to move on this, we're going to make that commitment. And I think that's the impact that the UAE has had, especially through the Masdar initiative, but with other initiatives as well too. And you can see the change regionally, and you can see the change globally. So I want to shift back to the mayors a bit. Thank you for letting me talk about Masdar City for a few minutes. It's a passion of mine. It's a profession, but it's also a passion, and it's been my privilege to be there for the past 13 years. But also it's my privilege to be able to talk to mayors like this. Can we talk a bit about, I would like to give each one of you the chance to say, what is the number one climate issue you're facing, and what are you doing as mayors? Because I think several of you talked about, we work with the people. You're dealing with the needs that people have in their lives. If you're dealing with people that, don't have transportation or don't have housing because of flooding, if you're dealing with 55% of your children are malnourished, it's very difficult to talk about climate change to them. But their lives are going to be impacted, whether they, unfortunately, more than others. So can we talk, and we'll go back to Mayor Dijksma to talk about what you view as your #1 climate change issue and how you're dealing with that at the city level.
Well, I think that in your words already you stated that what is now lacking behind is a social agenda cooperating with the climate agenda. So what we definitely need, not only I think in the global south, but also in Europe or in the US, is two things. First of all, the citizens have to really support this agenda. So, and what we see is that especially the most vulnerable people, also in my city, are not the first ones who are having the benefits of the, for instance, the energy transition. So what a government should do is really to have its policy on this group. So in Utrecht, what we are doing now with the energy transition, because I think that is our biggest challenge, because we already are a very sustainable city when it comes to mobility. Almost everybody, not only the mayor, is biking around. We have a lot of pedestrians in our streets. Sometimes cars are not even welcome anymore, or cars are guests. So we definitely have that on track, I would say. But with the energy transition, there's still a lot of work needs to be done. And what we now are doing is having a program in which we try to get rid of gas. For some European countries, that even is a transition mode, right? And because they're still on coal. But we want to get rid of gas and have people on renewables. So what we do is to have those houses of the corporations, of those people who have the lowest incomes, to deliver first there. So what we are doing is that we renovate their houses. We give them a new energy system. They need to cook not on gas anymore, but on induction. So they get even the pans which are necessary for this system from the municipality. And in this way, we try to show and win the hearts and minds of our citizens when it comes to the necessity of the energy transition. And we definitely choose to let them benefit first, because I can afford solar panels on my rooftop myself. I do not need government support. And many people in my city do this also, because we are the city in the Netherlands with the most solar panels on the rooftops. But that is all the people who can afford it who do it. And so we need to shift over to a social and just transition, and to put in health also within the discussion, because air pollution, for instance, also is attacking most of the times those who are the most vulnerable and poor. So I hope that if you would have a different discussion on climate, and not only a discussion for the green church, so to say, for the believers, but if you would really reach out to those people who are afraid of this transition and show them how it can help them, then I think that you will gain much more public support. And this is, at the end of the day, what we need, because we also see that many people and some politicians worldwide are opposing this agenda. And if they get it their way, then yeah, I think that for future generations, it will be a heavy burden to deal with.
Thank you for that. I appreciate the Green Church, because we are here in the Green Church.
Yes.
And this is the greenest of the green churches. We are believers, but the need to actually go out and work with the people who are most vulnerable and say, okay, how do we help you understand that sustainability is something that climate change is going to affect you most, and that we need to bring you in to the green church.
If you would have one more remark, if you would take the world map right now and look where all the wars are, where people are fleeing from their countries, and if you would at the same time make an impact map on where climate change hits the hardest, then you will see a remarkable resemblance between those areas. So this is why I think that it's so necessary that we combine these issues much more than we do at the moment.
Thank you. And I'd like to give it a chance for Mayor Lowe to have a word about that same topic, because when we were talking earlier, you talked about the impact, especially, and you're very passionate about how this impacts women, and what you're doing there in your community.
Yeah, Steph, as I said at the beginning, my city is a port city, a port city and a tourist city. When I said port city, what comes in mind is pollution. And a population, a youthful population, a population of youth and women, a population that are not aware of the effect of climate change. They don't understand how much climate change can make a damage in the city. My city, as I said, is a coastal city. We have flooding before. So what is needed now, before anything, is the advocacy for people to understand the impact of climate change. Climate change is doing a lot of damage in my city, but because there is no political will, politicians don't want to talk about it. It is more important to have money from the port than to save lives from climate change. So people don't understand the impact of climate change. And most of the people living in the city are women and youth. Some of them, 70% of them, are not educated. So they will not understand the issues that the mayor is telling them, how climate change is impacting the city. So now, the problem is, everybody knows advocacy is expensive. So where are the climate champions? If you, as the mayor, did not have any help from the climate champions to come and say, okay, mayor, we are coming to do this with you. Of course, we are doing the little we can. We are planting trees. We are planting trees at the beach to make sure that, because my city, as I said, is on the sea level. So very soon, in the next 40 years, there will be no Banjul. This is the reality. There will be no Banjul. And then this will be the time when the climate champion will start getting into Banjul and say, we want to help, then it is already late. So I am saying, come to us. We need you. This is the time we need you. We cannot do it alone at the local level. I have my population, as I said, people, most of them are not educated and they don't understand the issues of climate change. So please, if you are a climate champion, we need you in Banjul, the Gambia, Banjul. We need you there, at least, not for anything, but to come and champion with us the climate issues so that my population will understand that the climate issues is reality. This is what I want. Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you, Mayor Lowe, for that obviously heartfelt but necessary message to the rest of us. I'm going to give the last word here to Mayor Rahu. I could spend the next hour just talking about these issues with these three mayors here. Unfortunately, they tell me I'm supposed to keep us on time. But why don't we just give a last bit about what you're doing with the people of your community to take on your biggest climate change issues?
Well, as I mentioned before, one of the biggest climate change issues that we face has to do with flooding. So what we did, first of all, was to come up with a project to educate the citizens of my city about the importance of mangroves, what in the climate change parole is called nature-based solutions. So the first line of defense against erosion to my city are the mangroves. Then come the cement infrastructure. But mangroves are the first line of defense. But what happens, because people are poor, they cut the mangroves. They cut the mangroves for two main reasons. One, for cooking. They use the mangrove tree either to make charcoal or just to use for their cooking. The second reason why they cut the mangroves is to build their own houses. They use the wood to build houses. So when I went there and started advocating about the importance of the mangroves, most of my citizens, they said, Mayor, we understand the mangroves are important, but we are a bit worried with you because we thought that you will be more worried about our level of poverty rather than mangroves. And their question was very simple. One of them asked me, Mayor, do mangroves vote? So the question here was to choose between mangroves and the livelihood of my citizens. Of course, for any politician, this is a very tricky question because mangroves indeed don't vote. But I had to prove them that mangroves do vote. How did I do it? Actually, 6% of the citizens of my city, they get their livelihood and their income from the fishing industry. I had to explain to them the importance of mangroves in biodiversity because most fish and crustaceans, they reproduce themselves in the mangroves. So if we cut the mangroves, they will not reproduce there. And then we will have less fish. If we have less fish, they will get unemployed. If they get unemployed, they will not get money to sustain themselves. So I made the link between mangroves and their well-being. So by protecting mangroves, actually, I was caring about them. So it is not either mangroves or our livelihood. It's our livelihood by protecting mangroves. But of course, they came back. They're like, okay, we understand now the importance of mangroves. But how are we going to cook? If I stop cutting the mangroves, I will not eat. If I stop cutting mangroves, I will not have a house. I will sleep under the bridge. So the issue here became, what are the alternatives? It's not enough to convince our citizens about climate change. We need to come up with solutions, with alternatives. So what we did again was to partner with UN Habitat and World Vision, which is a US organization, for them to come up with alternative materials that people could use to build their houses without using mangroves. So they went to the construction industry, they went to other industry, and they made some experiments with local materials and rubbish, waste material also, to come up with new kinds of materials that could be used for building houses. Up to now, we have built some of those houses, but during the process of building the houses, we brought in youngsters, carpenters, engineers to learn the new way of building houses. But now we are looking for partners to scale it up because it has proved that it works. Oh. And those houses, actually we call them resilient houses. And the second point was about how to cook. How could they cook without cutting the mangroves? Again, we went to the West. We made a partnership with the Institute of Technology from Stockholm, where they send us two master's students per year to come to help us in developing a model to transform waste into biogas. And the idea is actually to use waste into biogas and then to provide an alternative so that they can use the biogas for cooking instead of cutting mangroves.
Perfect. I've got to cut you off because I've got a couple more people I've got to reach out to. But what I think we're really hearing are consistent themes across geographies, across levels of income, is that we need to take care of our most vulnerable citizens. And then it's the mayor's jobs who are doing that. That we need partnerships to do this. We need technology transfer. And then also I think that there are things coming out of Africa, coming out of your solutions that we can bring to Europe, we can bring to the US, we can bring to what we've seen as more developed companies, that you're developing grassroots solutions that can be applied in other places. And so I want to thank the mayors, but I also want to have a couple people in the audience for a couple of words. Mayor Krupa of Caravace, just short remarks from you. Thank you for your participation here.
From this place, yes?
Do you want to come up here?
Maybe yes.
Come up so the camera can see you. I will step off and you step. No, come on over here. Come on behind the podium.
One moment, please. Thank you very much. The panelists, mayors, participants, I'm honored to take part in this inspiring discussion. In December 2018, Katowice hosted the UN Climate Summit COP24 under slogan Black to Green. According to this idea, all pro-ecological activities are top priority in our city. The challenges of the modern world we are facing, especially related to climate change, are extremely difficult. In just 20 years, Katowice has undergone a great transformation from a heavy industry city based on coal mines into the modern city of culture and innovation. We are developing ecological and educational programs, but still the air pollution is the biggest problem. Fighting for clean air, we are developing public transport, which transfer centers, building bicycle roads, and buying hybrid and electric buses. In recent years, we have spent over $105 million to combat low emissions, but it's not enough. We are open to new ideas and appreciate and support initiatives of our citizens, as we know the environment is very important. We have been running the Green Budget program for 3 years now, where our citizens can present new green ideas and propose their solutions. In 3 editions, residents have had $2 million at their disposal. Next year, we are going to run 96 green projects initiated by our citizens for nearly $600,000, and we desperately need much more money to continue and develop such projects. We cooperate with universities because we recognize explore the scientific potential, and with businesses who are ecological friendly and have a clear vision for the green future. We are also actively supporting young talent. Katowice has been running a competition for local startups presenting innovative ideas for 2 years now. The winners receive a financial reward to develop their project. This year, the award went to Eco Factories, a startup focused on producing powder and nanopowder for titanium, which can be used in 3D printing or in coatings for airplanes and spacecraft. This is one of the examples that bring optimism and hope for a better future. Gifted, well-educated people who use their potential, knowledge and creativity will change the world. Their talent and vision require support, and it is our moral duty to support them. Thank you very much for attention.
Thank you, Mayor Krupa. And I understand that Mayor Dijksma needs to step out right now. I've got just one more quick one from the CEO of the African American Mayors Association, with over 500 mayors in America, including 3 of the 4 largest cities. And so I'd like to give the mic to Phyllis Dickerson, and then we'll wrap up quickly.
Thank you, Stephen. So on behalf of the mayors from the U.S., As you know, the top 4 mayor cities around the U.S., 3 of them are represented by African American mayors. One of our biggest problems is affordable housing. So an example in New York, in Brooklyn, they are doing what we call public housing in a different way. And so they have a new development like in Brooklyn that has the ability to have retail on the bottom and then efficiency apartments on the top levels. In that way, they have been able to decrease energy efficiency by 70%. So they're able to cool and heat the building. They also put in a recreation center, and then they put in play areas for the children. And Mayor Lowe, I heard you when you talked about women in public service. And so I'm happy to report of the top 4 cities around the U.S. As you know, New York is #1 with Eric Adams. But Lori Lightfoot, the mayor of Chicago, Illinois, is a female. And as of today, Los Angeles, Karen Bass is leading by 36,000 votes. And so we may have, of the top 4 cities in the U.S., 2 women and 2 men running in the U.S. So thank you for your work. And so I know the other mayors spoke about the ability to have solar panels in underserved areas, and that's normally not affordable. What you see in some U.S. cities is the ability to pay for them through your utility bill. So part of your utility bill allows you to just pay off the ability to have those solar panels. And so it's more affordable in more underserved areas. So on behalf of the African American Mayors Association, we'd like to thank you, Stephen, and the mayors for participating in this workshop.
And I want to thank the mayors who joined me, Mayor Lowe, Mayor Dijksma, Mayor Rahu, also Mayor Krupa and CEO Dickerson for their participation. Everybody was fantastic. I was the only one who did not keep us on time. But I do need to wrap this up. There'll be someone coming next. But thank you all for coming out for the 9 o'clock session. And thank you to the Global Parliament of Mayors and the government of UAE for sponsoring this.